Aubrey, welcome back for take 2.
Yes, we recorded this episode and then realized we weren't recording. So this is going to be really good because we practiced, which we never do. And so you're going to get an amazing episode here,
Oh,
guys.
man, I just had such a hard laugh at myself, guys. Aubrey and I talked through, we did a whole episode, and it was my fault that you said we, but I will own this
I was not
mistake.
going to throw you under the
I
bus.
did not hit record when I should have. Anyway, like Aubrey said, it'll make this even better because we've already practiced. So, we have some amazing speaking part 2 advice for you today. Aubrey looked at our YouTube channel. Guys, if you're not checking us out on YouTube, you're missing like half of the awesomeness because being able to watch us talk and use our hands and facial expressions, Aubrey is, I'm going to say she's famous for her hand
Yes, there
gestures.
are a
She's
lot
really
of hand
good
gestures. And Jessica's
at her
wearing these
hand
really fun
gestures.
earrings and a fun sweater. So if nothing else, come to YouTube to see the fashion.
We're such icons, but really, it does help with the comprehension, guys. And then you can also look at the subtitles,
Mhm.
right? Those just click on that closed caption and you could read the subtitles while we're talking and learn even more. All right, so we have 2 questions from YouTube subscribers today about speaking part 2. So let's get into it. Aubrey, what's our
Okay,
first
this first one
question?
was from Bazarana Jafzada 5417. I know you guys' your usernames on YouTube are always really funny, so we don't know what the name is, but somewhere in there is the name of this person. Thank you for your question.
So funny. Wait, I want to
Yes,
try.
go.
I want to try. Okay. Basirana Ja Fasad.
Nice. That might be
I don't know.
exactly
Anyway.
correct for the name. I don't know. Either way, thank you for your
All
question.
right.
So here they asked, they
Yes.
said, "You guys are fantastic." First of all, thank you. And then
Thank you.
just one question. Should we answer all the questions on the cue card? Sometimes we talk and talk, but one question is left. Will this give a negative effect? Good question. The very short answer is no. That wouldn't
Nope.
that would not affect your
Nope.
score negatively, but there's a lot more to it than that, right, Jessica?
Yeah. So think about what you're scored on. Okay. You are not scored for each part, right? There's not like a separate checklist for speaking part 1, part 2, part 3. No. The examiner is listening for the same exact things in all 3 parts, right? So we don't care if you talk about those bullet points or not. There's nothing about bullet points in the scoring rubric. It doesn't matter for your score. What does matter and why they're there, that's what we need to clarify. So what does matter for speaking part 2 is that you can expand on this central topic for 2 minutes. You can even go on tangents. You could do like side notes like I always do. I always say something like, "Oh, on a side note, I had a crazy thing happen to me yesterday." As long as it's related to the topic, as long as you verbally relate it to the topic with your words, you can talk about anything, right? Now, why are the bullet points there, Aubrey, if they don't even matter for our score?
Right. There are a couple ways the bullet points could potentially help. You do need to cover the topic. You need to actually answer the question, right? So if you're not positive that you understand what you're being asked to describe, read those bullet points for sort of clues to make sure that you understand. And then honestly, after reading the bullet points, if you're still not sure that you understand what you're supposed to describe, ask the examiner, right? During that 1 minute, you have to make sure that you're very clear that you're answering the right question, you're describing the right thing. And so those bullet points can be sort of a clue to make sure that you're on topic.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, totally. I think that advice is really great if you are beginning your IELTS journey and you are learning about this test, learning about the question types. And then as you get closer to your exam, you become more familiar with the types of questions that IELTS throws at you. Like in part 2, it's always going to be describe an event, describe an object, describe an experience, describe a person, describe a place. Those are all the options, right? So you'll become familiar with those types of questions. And then you don't even have to look at the bullet points. So hopefully, ideally, what you want to do every time every time I say ideally, it reminds me of Key and Peele. There's a sketch on Key and Peele about that. Anyway, see, I go on tangents all the time. Um, Anyway, so ideally, guys, what you want to do is not even have to look at those bullet points. I think it's a waste of time the closer you get to your exam because you need to use that entire minute to write down as many details, specific things as you can connected to that topic. And hopefully, think of a story connected to that topic. Remember, all you have to do is focus on that central topic. That's always pretty broad, you know? Describe a time you were late for something. Describe a time someone lied to you. Describe a old person that you admire. Like there's a lot to say around that, right? There's a lot of context you could give. So access your own thoughts, your own stories related to this topic, and just write as much as you can for that 1 minute.
Absolutely, right? If you have to, you can, of course, make up something, make up a story, make up details, but
Sure.
whenever possible, you want to stick to your own experience because that's the easiest way to pull up interesting details to have a ton to say when you're telling a story about something that actually happened to you. And keep in mind, your thoughts don't have to be organized in IELTS speaking like they do on IELTS writing, right? You can, just like Jessica said, go off on a tangent, but you want to link your ideas. So if you think of something amazing and you have a cool idiom, but it's sort of about what you've talked about in the past, just say something like, "Oh, I should have said this amazing thing," or "Actually, what's really interesting is," and then share that, right?
Mhm.
You don't have to think, "Oh, I've kind of already covered what I did before I went on this vacation." No, right? Share the details. It's okay if your thoughts aren't extremely organized, as long as you're sharing new, interesting details and showing that you're fluent, that you can speak for 2 minutes on any topic.
It really is about the nature of the communication mediums, right? The nature of speaking is disorganized because it is spontaneous. The nature of writing is organized, right? And so that's what you're graded on. Yeah.
Mhm.
And writing, everything has to be organized. And speaking, no, that's not expected. It's not natural. The way that we fulfill the fluency and coherence then is not by being perfectly organized, it's by signaling with our words to the examiner where we're going. So if you want to mention something on a side note, say that. Be like, by the way, just as a side note, I know that this question is about restaurants or is about local restaurants, but I had the most amazing experience when I traveled to London in a restaurant. You know what I mean? Like, as long as you are communicating where you're going with transition phrases, then you could go anywhere.
Absolutely, that's such a good point that if you get that question, a lot of people might think, "Oh, I have to only talk about local restaurants to remain on topic." Nope, share details about anything related. Just like you said, link your
Mhm.
thoughts so that the examiner understands where you're going. Let's dive into this
All
second
right.
question.
Cool, cool, cool. Okay. So, this question was about a video with a sample part 2 answer describing an object. And I believe in that video, I told a little story about my son as well. I talk about him so much. So the question from the subscriber was, isn't it off topic if you talk about your son if the question clearly states an object? So this goes off a lot of what we've already noted about speaking part 2 and what you're graded on, right? You need to give a lot of context in part 2, or else you can't fill that 2 minutes. So if I were given this question today, the first thing that comes to mind is this really cool like Garmin GPS device that my son was so stoked about and he just had to have it and I got it for him and he never used it. Like he had so many great plans for using this thing and never used it once, right? So it would be impossible to just describe this little piece of plastic for 2 minutes and not repeat myself or anything. Like my son is part of that story about the object. I'm still talking about the object. I'm just giving context.
Exactly, right? If you try to just list attributes, you're going to run out of time. So if you could tell a story about how your son was so excited to get it and maybe he earned money for it or what he did to talk you into it, suddenly 2
Yeah,
minutes is gone, right? It's so much
totally.
easier to share details and fill that time when you're sharing a story about it, when you're sharing interesting details, and absolutely, you're going to be talking about friends, family members, your own experiences. Not everything will be just about details about this object. You have to do that, in fact. Not only is it not, not only is it just about what's on topic, it's about what is really necessary to show your fluency.
Exactly. So, the takeaway from today, guys, is be flexible, remain flexible on the speaking test because you need to follow your thoughts. Our thoughts are not organized, neither is our speech. You just have to signal with your words where you're going. Transition phrases, referencing, right? And then you can go anywhere. You could follow your thoughts anywhere, and that's fluency. All right, awesome. Aubrey, great episode today. Thanks for finding those
Yes, no
questions.
problem. See you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.